What's up, guys, and welcome to another Bojanian vlog. It's a warm day, and in this entry I wanted to talk to you guys basically about, well, in this entry I kind of want to extend on some of the ideas and perspectives I've offered in previous entries, and basically kind of give an additional perspective on them, and that's kind of the the general gist of the vlog entries I do. The general theme, just building upon old ideas based on my unraveling life experience. So I hope you won't mind my self-indulgence. But so in this entry I wanted to talk about a recent realization of mine, and I wasn't really sure what to title this video because I knew that it was going to be a bit all over the place in terms of, there wasn't any kind of singular focus. There kind of is, there's kind of a main theme to what I'm about to talk about, but if I were to give it a title, it would be along the lines of just how to live a fulfilling life kind of thing. Look at this camera. Essentially how to find happiness in a time of chaos, right? Because as I talked about in previous entries, we live in a time where, unprecedented, right, in human history. We live in a time that is the culmination of all of the developments that have occurred, amongst human civilization. Advances in knowledge, technological advancements, the internet, all of these things, and so we find ourselves in this amazing world that is unprecedented, but at the same time, most of us, the vast majority of us, find ourselves kind of just in a state of limbo where it's like, okay, but how do I live my life? I have this background noise of kind of, it's not even unhappiness, but it's like an emptiness, and it's like this is emptiness, despite all of the amazing things that have happened, or so I'm told. It's constantly being rubbed in our faces how amazing society is. Well, it depends on the source, but ultimately, it's like people are always talking about what amazing, exciting new direction that humanity is moving in. But at the back of your mind, it's like, well, is life really that good? And there is a kind of very strong sentiment amongst humans of well, is life really that good? Is it just not shittier than ever? And so essentially we find ourselves in an age where it's very, well, everyone's confused. It's like, what do I do with life, right? And the same is true of myself. I want to be a trailblazer, but at the same time, I'm constantly hit by this feeling of well, how do I live life in a way that is right, essentially, for lack of a better word. And so many of us are faced with this, and as if you watch any of my previous videos, I talk about leading a life of freedom. I talk about tapping into your sensitivity, right? Two very important things. One, developing your own basis of thinking, being an independent thinker, and really forming your own value system, forming your own belief system, and really owning your interpretation of the world, right? Which is the very thing that is kind of placated in school, right? Independent thinking is really something that is not on at least when I was in school, it wasn't something. It was never a priority. In school it was just teach them this. Independent thinking, yeah, whatever. Yeah, and number two, tapping into sensitivity, something that most of us lack in today's society, because the society is so conducive to insensitivity to energy, right? This modern society we find ourselves in is very abstract, mechanical, bureaucratic, very legal, I guess you could say. Like it's very much like, you know, it's like a battle of structure, basically. It's like a proxy war, you'd say. Like it, you know, and so like it doesn't really lend to sensitivity, right, and feeling. And as I say, you know, as is the central teaching that I have to give in many of my entries, you know, feeling is one of the keys to fulfillment in life. Like your feeling is central to the quality of life that you will lead, right? And that's why I teach about it. But when we're on this journey, you know, and you know, for many of us, we're starting on this journey, you know, amongst the chaos there are kind of like a number of people, you know, throughout the world who are rising up, like myself, who, you know, are willing to basically question and awaken and, you know, develop our understanding of consciousness and all of that good stuff. And so like, you know, basically in a way, you know, out of the chaos, like the spirituality is stronger than ever, you know, amongst human beings. But there is a pitfall with spirituality. So like this video is kind of partially targeted at the spiritual community, and like basically like the problems that exist within the spiritual community, because like, you know, a lot of people are turning to spirituality nowadays, and like to like for answers, basically, you know, as to like how to live a good life and all that good stuff. And you know, with these videos, I'm kind of in the business, and you know, there are loads of other people who like do these kinds of things, you know, inspirational content, motivational content, self-help, personal development, spirituality, and so there are loads of ideas floating around, you know, and I myself provide, you know, my own ideas, but like there are loads of ideas flying about, you know, as to like how to live life, how, like, you know, what to focus on, you know, what are the truths of the universe, you know. And eventually you kind of hit a brick wall, right? And that's kind of true in my own life, where it's like, well, I have all of this understanding, but like there are things in my life that still haven't changed, right? I'm still kind of lonely, like I still can't really relate to most people, you know, and like certain things haven't changed, right? You know, and this kind of forces you to basically like face certain things, right? Because essentially, you know, the thing that leads to happiness is kind of the hardest thing to teach, right? Because it involves your engagement, right? And this is kind of the crux of what I want to talk about in this entry, which is that, you know, your fulfillment in life is tied to your trust in the experience, right? So, you know, it's cool developing all of these ideas. It's cool to like listen to, you know, different people's ideas and perspectives, and like, you know, to be inspired by the people, and you know, to try all of these cool things that people tell you to do, you know. But like, if you're not present, right, and this is another concept that I have talked about, talked about, and also other spiritual teachers have talked about. If you're not present with life, then it doesn't matter what the hell, you know, like how enlightened you are, or how like knowledgeable you are of like universal truths and that kind of thing. You're gonna have a shitty life experience, right? By virtue of a resistance and absence, like the opposite, you know, like being absent from your life, right? So what do I mean by this? Well, so you know, you're going about your internal quest, you know, your journey to your spiritual journey, self-actualization, whatever you want to call it, right? And you're developing, you're kind of discovering all of these truths and these kind of nuances to do with life and experience, right? And it's like, well, like I've talked about in previous entries, you know, like life is, you know, sometimes there's paradoxes in life, and like sometimes and there's this component to life that isn't describable in words, and like, and it really, and things depend on your energetic set points, so like, if you, and motivation is kind of an extension of that, right? So for example, I talk about light and shadow motivations, right? And the same action or identity, like symbolic identity, has a completely different kind of effect depending on whether it comes from a light or loving connected space, or from a shadow or kind of fearful, a fearful like paradigm, like motivation, right? And so there are all of these things, right? And we have all of these ideals as well, like like we have to become a certain way, we have to be good people, we have to this is a good one for the spiritual community, like transmute our negativity into positivity, things like that. And so you do all of this stuff, like you do what the spiritual teachers tell you to do. You try your best to focus positively on life and all of this good stuff. But you realize that after many failed attempts, right, and it really, I don't know, maybe I'm not that resilient in that way, but like maybe some people do that like for years of their lives. But like for me, I realized it pretty quickly. It is that like no matter what degree of positive focus you throw at life, or you attempt to muster, life is going to be pretty shitty at times still, right? And like you realize this, and it's like fuck, right? And so like you hit up against that, and it's like you almost become almost nihilistic, and like like you go through dark nights of the soul, right? Realizing that like no matter what degree of positive focus you throw at life, and like no matter how hard you try to transmute that negativity in life, and all of the bullshit that happens in life, life is still going to be shitty at times, right? Like you're still going to be angry, you're still going to be jealous, you're still going to be like fucking, like you're still going to feel like despair, crushing despair at times in life. And it's like, and you're like, oh man. And like basically slowly you start to realize that, well, maybe I need to be present with that stuff, right? And that's fucking hard, right? It's fucking hard, but that's kind of where the beauty lies, so basically I'm gonna just cut to the chase, because like for fear of kind of just waffling on, like you have to trust life, right? And that means just going with it, right? And trusting the way that you feel, right? And that doesn't mean necessarily abandoning all reason, because we need reason, right? Rather, it is a willingness to just stand for whatever it is you decide to focus on in life, right? I'm probably not doing a very good job of explaining this, but it is basically like we all have this, we all fall into this pitfall of like thinking that life, like we should be a certain way, or that we should do a certain thing, or that like we have all of these preconceptions of how we should be, how other people should be, how life should be. But sometimes life is just life, and it's just going to happen whether you like it or not, right? You control it and steer it to the best of your ability, but when it doesn't go right, you kind of have to accept that, right? And it is the willingness to fully lose yourself into the experience, right? So I could have entitled this video differently. Like I was going to call it "Experience is God," right? Because that is true, right? If you want to talk about God, God is experience, right? God is the willingness to lose yourself in life, right? It's not like subconsciously pulling yourself back behind like a glass screen which says, you know, I have to be a certain way, I have to be happy now, you know, no, like that person is wrong, I'm wrong, you know, all of these mental judgments, thinking that is like that we are now enlightened and like exempt from life. No, you are never exempt from life, and that kind of separation from life that you try your best to maintain is an illusion, right? And the more that you know that you quest internally and try to separate yourself, you know, subconsciously or consciously, the more that life hits you in the face, saying that, well, you're still alive, motherfucker. You know, life is still here. You're still not exempt from the highs and lows of life, right? And so you hit a point where it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm like, I have no choice. It's not even like a conscious decision where it's like, okay, now I'm going to focus on life. It's just like, after so much bumping into that shit and like life like punching your face and waking you up out of like that illusion of like, oh, I'm so much better than life now, you know, like I'm so like enlightened and like stuff like that. It's like, no, motherfucker, you're still in life, you know, life is still going to happen to you, and like eventually you just lose. It's more of a surrender type of thing where it's like, you know what, I give up, you know, like if nothing is going to work out, if this isn't going to work out for me, like I have no choice, you know, like, you know, what am I supposed to do? Like fight it? Like I'm all out of juice now. And this kind of extends into like just generally the way that you approach life. It's like, it's not saying that you should just let life kind of happen and like just like throw yourself into the chaos. No, you know, like everything else that you experience is real. And this is like the really tough thing to grasp. It is that everything that you experience, everything that you think is real, right? You just have to kind of like just keep at it basically, and realize when you're separating from life. You know, basically the only time, and you know, this is like the only time that you realize that you are separating yourself and, you know, from life, or like attempting to in vain, is when you is when you realize that you have been doing that, right? When it's too late, right? That's the only time, because when you're trying to anticipate it, you're already in the trap, right? That's how subtle it is, right? And so, yeah, so a lot of it is basically like trusting, like basically just like being like, okay, well, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. Like, I'm not going to try and prevent it from happening. Because a lot of times, like, you know, we find ourselves in these mental states where it's like, you know, like you find yourself doing something to try and prevent something from happening, right? And it's like, well, that's cool, you know, maybe that will work, you know, maybe you can actually take precautions sometimes in life, and it will, you know, stop you from, you know, getting into bad times. But that kind of energy of like trying to separate yourself from life, from experience, by like, you know, trying to protect yourself all the time, you know, which is the ego's like basically role in our lives, right? You know, the less the worse the quality of life will be, because you're not connected with life, right? There's good and bad in life, you know, whether or not you're like right up front in life's face, or you're trying to like stand back from life and protect yourself from it. Like, the highs and lows are going to happen anyway, right? And so the only thing that you really have control over is whether or not you're there for life, whether or not you're in the driver's seat of life and just like being like, okay, fuck it. You know, there's going to be highs and lows, you know, like I've tried like my best to distance myself and to protect myself from life, but like honestly, if that still results in like shit happening to me occasionally, then like fuck it. Like, I'm just gonna be like, whatever, man. Like, I'm gonna stop worrying. I'm gonna stop trying to like always like distance myself from life and protect myself, and just like go through it and just be like in the driver's seat, right? You know, instead of like sitting at the back of the roller coaster, I'm now gonna sit in the front, because either way, I'm gonna feel the same ups and downs, right? So, I guess like, yeah, it's not been the most coherent message, but like, it's something that I've just discovered, and also, yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be. It's the ultimate teaching essentially, but that in itself, teaching this thing is in itself kind of like desecrating this idea, this kind of thing, which is that like experience is God. No one can teach you experience. Experience is something that only you can have, right? No one can teach you an experience, and so like even by virtue of me teaching you this, it's cheapening it, right? It's not what I'm trying to explain, like what I'm saying essentially is like to go out and just like fail, and be okay with that. And this extends into emotions and stuff like that, right? A lot of particularly like spiritual teachings, and the kind of general sentiment in spiritual communities is like trying to transcend emotion, right? We use all of these fancy like kind of words like and things like that, like like being present and all this thing, but like honestly, like a lot of it is like trying our best to like distance ourselves from emotion, right? It's trying to stop ourselves from feeling pain, but you can't, right? And so so it is, so to give you an example, it is to say, like, to trust in life, to trust in experience, to trust in God is to say, okay, well, like, I'm going to go into this relationship, for example, and I have fear that this person's going to hurt me, right? I have fear that, like, they're going to see my flaws, my insecurities, and all of that stuff, and they're going to hate me, like I fear that I'm going to go into it and I'm going to dishonor and like shit all over my own expectation of how I should be as a person, like my identity, right? I'm going to fuck up, and like I have all of these fears as to like what's going to happen, but like, and so like like the distancing way is to say like, well, okay, I'm gonna be jaded, I'm gonna like not reveal too much of myself, I'm gonna like prevent myself from becoming too intimate with this person, or indeed just like not get into a relationship with that person after all, because it's too much trouble, like I don't want people to see potentially who I could be, because deep down, even if it's subconsciously, I know that I'm someone who is full of like fucking mud and like murky bullshit within me that is like disgusting and animalistic, and like it's not morally pure. There's a part of me, and like even if you don't, like, you might deny that fact, but like all human beings are human beings, right? Yes, we're spiritual entities, we are consciousness undergoing dream of form, you could say, but like we're still human, right? And again, being human means being part of the experience of life, which involves highs and lows, which involves you basically like, or your image of yourself being completely shattered, thinking that you are this morally pure person, when like deep down you are like this lustful, manipulative, deceitful, like like pessimistic, like person, that there was that person within you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And like, again, and another example is like, like just being like, what, fuck it, yeah, like if like, I'm going to go into a career that I truly I truly believe in, right? And I might fail, right? I probably am going to fail, right? And I'm going to be a little crybaby about it, and I'll probably give up, or at least there's the potential for that shit to happen. And it's like, well, is that going to stop me from pursuing a career? Is that going to stop me from like giving my whole self towards it? Because like another part of me tells me that it's the right thing to do. Am I going to be ashamed that like all of that shit might potentially happen, and that people might call me out on it and like insult me about it and make me feel crappy about myself? Well, no, like, like, I'm not going to be ashamed about that, right? And I would much rather go through the experience, and this is the key. I would much rather go through the experience and for any or all of those things to happen, and for myself to be humiliated and embarrassed, and all of this fucking bullshit happen to me, and for me to feel all of this shit, then to like be, okay, well no, I'm gonna like stand back, and I'm never gonna experience that shit, right? I'm too afraid of I told you so. I'm too afraid of of discovering that I'm actually not perfect, or that I have flaws, or that like I'm not up to the high standard that like I've set myself, right? And like, you know, it, again, you know, applies to like just like the way that you express yourself, you know? Am I going to be afraid of how I am truly, and always like basically present to the world this sterilized version of myself that's very nice and politically correct, and you know, and like never offends anyone, and like always has the right thing to say, you know, depending on the social context, like, or am I going to like and secretly live in pain, or am I going to like, if I'm angry, I'm going to be angry and just be angry, and you know, people might hate me, I might hate myself, and like, you know, all manner of things might happen. You know, if someone insults me, I might insult them back, and that might fuck with my image of like, you know, oh no, I'm a good person, you know, I don't retaliate, I don't bring myself down to the level of like fucking, you know, nasty people and all that stuff. Or are you going to honor your feelings and be like, okay, well, mate, like quite possibly I am as bad as other people because I am human, right? I am spirit, you could say. You know, you can use this perspective. I am spirit undergoing the human experience, but that involves you actually being a part of life, and for you to potentially have the same flaws as, you know, the ones that you project onto other people, you know, and secretly like, and subconsciously like either suppress, and then like for it to manifest like subconsciously, you know, all of this bullshit, right? And like it all comes down, it all comes back to, you know, yeah, like you not trusting in life and just letting go, right? And this is, you know, again, I've talked about letting go, and like this is kind of like the deeper aspect of that. This is like the next step, like letting go and just be like, you know, yeah, you know, I'm a fucking mess like the next person, but like I'm still trying to go to get to where I want to be. You know, I still have desires, but at the same time I still know that I am spirit undergoing this human experience. You know, I still understand that there is something beyond the human experience and beyond life and death. You know, the spiritual knowledge that I've accumulated is still true, but at the same time, I am a human being who is undergoing this human experience, and I am fucking petty, I am fearful, I am jealous, I'm a hypocrite, I may be betraying myself and my friends and my family at times for petty reasons, you know. I am a victim of scarcity-minded thinking, you know. I let slip. So like sometimes I'm a hypocrite, sometimes I betray like my own expectations for myself, and all of these things are fucking scary, and that is life. That is fucking life. And like, am I going to like continue to be like, okay, no, I'm not like that. No, I'm going to be a morally upright person. I'm going to be all of this stuff, and that's fine also, right? That is fine also. But understand that when you do that, you're going to keep bumping into these walls, and you know, you're going to realize again that you've fallen into that pitfall of like trying to separate yourself from life, but you are never going to be able to be separate from life, because that's impossible. You're a human being undergoing the physical experience, right? So yeah, just to summarize again, you know, you are part of life, subject to its highs and lows, whether you fucking like it or not, right? And so, and trying to like everything is one major fucking mistake, right? You like, you can try and convince yourself that you like the fact that someone fucking punched you in the face, or that someone left you for someone else, like because they had more money than you, or they were better looking than you, or the fact that you have like, you know, really impure desires within you. Sometimes you want to kill people, or have sex with the wrong people. You know, like all of these things, right? You can try and like positively focus on these things, but it's not going to work, right? Like, you know, you're a masochist if you try that shit. So like, you know, you hit the brick wall, and you realize that life is life. You know, life is life, and that's all there is to say. You know, experience. Just go for it, right? You know, at the very least, stop resisting. Stop like playing all these mental games for yourself. You know, do it by all means, and realize at the end of it that it was all for like fucking nothing. Like it didn't change fuck all. All it did was give you a massive headache, right? But then you take that knowledge, and you go, okay, well, fuck it. Life, hit me with all you got. I'm still going to try and control you, but hit me with all you got. I'm still like a fucking like mess, but hit me with all you got, alright? So cool. I think this is a good place to end this entry. If anything, like the way that my state kind of changed over this video is like kind of an indication of how it should be, right? You know, the pressure, like, you know, the pressure of like being coherent in front of a camera. Fuck it, like, you know, maybe I'm not coherent, maybe like I'm talking a bunch of bullshit to you right now, but at the very least, you know, this is my form of teaching you that, you know, like, just, it's okay, like, you know, it's okay. If anything, like, that's probably the value that I can give in this way. It's just like, it's okay, you know, you don't have to be super, you know, I am one of those people who can give you permission to be yourself, and all that good shit. I really don't know what I'm talking about at this point, so. But anyway, I'm going to now distance myself away from this and say that this is all part of, you know, just me expressing what I wanted to express in the video. So cool. Battery's about to die, so I will leave you with that, and remember, experience is God. So cool. I hope that entry's been helpful, or at least entertaining. And, you know, wish you all the best in your life. Peace out. Catch you in the next entry.